Good morning, guys. Good morning. Welcome back to Island Tea right here on Win Media SKN. Guys, what happening, Jade?
I guess the laid back.
No, man, he can sit up when it's time to talk. I think I worry about that.
Okay, there we go.
But, yeah, guys, we have in studio with us, as Jade hinted, a very special guest, friend of the show. He's been here before.
Indeed.
And, every time he comes, it is also good vibes, very informative, amazing conversation. And I'm sure today will be no different. In studio with us, guys, we have Mr. Samal Duggins. And I know, Samal, firstly, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
Good morning. Good morning, Azim. Good morning, Jade. Good morning to our listening in Radioland, whether via social media or the actual airways. Good morning. I am here.
Well, yeah, you're here. And, the last time we were here, we spoke a bit about your story, your come up, and what you have had going on at the particular time. But this morning in particular, I know there is something that's in the air. Everyone is talking about it. Everywhere you go, it seems to be the topic of conversation, and that is the upcoming elections. And you are, of course, the candidate for the St.Kitts-Nevis Labour Party in constituency number 4. Man, we deep into campaign time now. We on the home stretch, if you want to call it that. The bell has rung, and but first let me ask you about how you feel about the fact that now we do have that date. We do have that that target in mind for at least this particular phase of the campaign to come to a head.
Well, of course, it's a welcome intervention because as you work, like for me coming in, I came in as a candidate in March, and that's about the time because it was just after the announcement at Kuna that I was here the last time. So I came in March as a candidate. At that point, we did not have the dissolution of Parliament or anything as yet. I don't think so.
No.
So my vision was 2025 to some
right.
At that point.
You wouldn't have had any clue that we would have been here at this particular time. Right.
So I was ready for the marathon, right? I came in prepared to go to 2025.
Right.
And here we are.
Just a few months later.
A few months after.
You had to do a whole sprint.
We had to turn the gears up. Luckily, I could shift gears, right? So I'm here and I'm prepared to do the sprint. Yeah. Well prepared to do the sprint.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a welcome intervention. And so when I hear you expressing that, I can tell that to me it signals that the campaign, the feedback that you've been getting has been positive. Is that a fair assumption?
Oh, yeah. The red shirt doesn't just signal being red, it's ready.
Right.
So the idea behind of it is exactly that. Now, my whole involvement in politics really came about from a lot of it from the request of the people. So even the tagline, the people's choice, the depth of that is that in constituency number 4, the people came out and demanded somewhat that not only that I be a candidate, but I be their candidate. And for them, that meant a lot. And it surprised me to see what it meant for them as a people to say, look, we actually chose our candidate. We stood up and we went out and we chose our candidate. And this is who we wanted, and we demanded this is who we wanted. So for me as a candidate, looking at what that meant for them, the people's choice became the tagline because it's like there was a certain vibe that they wanted, and they said, look, for maybe one of the first times, we felt like we were in charge of the entire process of choosing who we want to represent us.
Understood.
And I just paid homage to that and respected that. Like, this is what you wanted. Here is it. Here it is.
Right. Well, I mean, know that we are deeply in the lead up to election. The people would have said, "Hey, we want you to be our candidate. We want you to be somebody who is one of the possible choices to represent us moving forward." I know there has been a lot of conversations with said people, right?
Indeed.
And I'm curious though, one, how has that been going? What has the response been? But more importantly, what seems to be some of the common themes coming out of those conversations in terms of their concerns, desires, requests, etc.? Because I know for every constituency, there may be a set of and there might even come down to communities within constituencies, a set of pressing concerns that you find coming, being a common thread as you go through these interactions.
Well, what's interesting that I find the common theme as far as an issue is access to politicians. And I think in that case, that's one of the things that has been a strength for me. I'm generally very accessible. I'm somebody that would just go sit wherever they are and just hang out with them. And I've done that all my life, being a part of entertainment, being a part of sports. So it's natural for me to just be amongst people, and I have no worries being amongst people. I'm not one who tries to just run away from crowds or not be around, whatever is going on. I'm always in the mix. So one of the things that I think has been a strength against an issue has been the fact that they think a lot of times they elect politicians and then they disappear.
Okay.
So for me being so relatable and so social, it has brought a sense of ease and comfort for most of them, because they're like, Samal, I know you're always here. I know where to find you on a Friday, I know where to find you on a Monday, and I'm still there. I'm still doing much of the same things, barring time limitation, of course, but
right.
It's the same thing,
Well,
Yeah.
I guess the argument would be, once someone becomes elected, the workload increases, and it may become difficult to juggle that those new responsibilities, along with being, like you said, with the people, easily accessible to the people, especially now that you have now become this focal point for people within the community, and so spreading your time becomes very difficult. How do you intend to create that balance? Because it does become very demanding when now you are the person who this whole community looks towards, at least for political intervention.
And indeed, you're so right. And it doesn't even happen when you get elected. Like, think about running a campaign where you have, I have well over 3,000 persons in the constituency, and they all demand your time in a short span of time. Like, think about the next 21 days, having to attend to the needs of over 3,500 plus. So
And balance a campaign, meetings almost
Meetings.
nightly. Yeah.
still rest, still you have a family. I mean, it's a lot to juggle.
Right.
So a lot of times you find yourself wanting for time, wishing that there were a few more hours that you could fit into the day, beyond the 24 hours. But the truth is, it comes down to who you are. And I think people recognize all of these things. So not everybody will show that they recognize it, but when you get into conversation, so out of fear, a lot of people are like, oh, what's happening? But when you sit down and you talk to them, they're like, we know. It's really unrealistic for you to be in 5, 6, 7 meetings a day, get some rest, spend some time with your family, answer 100 plus phone calls, answer 100 plus messages, and still have time to focus on anything else. Right. It's really unrealistic, but you try as much as you can to do as much as you can. And
do you believe that one of the concerns, let me say, one of the talking points in this particular campaign that I've been seeing as a trend has been a situation where the campaign offices function as such. And so when there's no campaign, the offices tend to close down, right? As opposed to being a conduit that links the no representatives or even potential candidates or even the parties with the
With the
persons between the communities. Do you believe that persons should expect that those offices function in that way? Do you believe that is one way that we could address the issue that you're talking about? Because it really does become difficult to satisfy the expectation of the constituents to have this direct face-to-face access with you on a whim, right? Moving forward. So
And
how do we balance that?
And I think that is an excellent suggestion, and one in which that I have already put forward, that for me, not only that my office will remain open, because you need that space for people to come, make appointments, and have simple matters dealt with. Because a lot of the matters I've found that people have can be dealt with at an office, right? But not only that, I have already put forward that I will do my monthly town hall meetings once elected. So every month, I'll take that 2-3 hours out of my month and have a sit down with my constituents where they air their views, and I could give them an update on the matters of the day.
Right.
Because as we go along in government and as we would imagine, there are a lot of things that will be at stake and be at play, right? You have cabinet, you have decisions being made at so many different levels. You have international decisions that we have to abide by, regional decisions that we have to abide by. So you would have to give your people an update, because it's not just black and white.
Right.
Right? So my idea is to have monthly town halls. So every month I could come and sit with you and say, this is where we are at this point. And hear your concerns as well as constituents, to hear where you are at this point. And then we could find some kind of medium in the mix.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good idea. Something that I hope others may consider adopting. Because like you said, it's one thing for you to then come and say, hey, such and such and such needs to get handled, or we feel such and such needs addressing. And then it might not even be so much that the politician has forgotten because that you're not seeing anything happen, but there might be processes.
Correct.
Yeah, that need
Correct.
to take place prior to the actual execution.
Execution.
So being able to keep people updated also, puts them at ease in terms of, okay, he is working, or just even sometimes you need a reminder as to, hey, this is still an issue.
This is still an issue. Correct. And that's the thing, is it really comes down to communication. And when you're
Right.
around people all the time, you recognize that is really just communication. You tell me where you are today, and then tomorrow we see each other and you tell me where you are tomorrow, and we get to address the matter. And there's no build-up of anxiety and people being concerned that nothing is happening because they didn't hear from you for 6-8 months or 2 years, 3 years. And then you come in the last 6 months to try and tell them everything you should have told them over the course of 4 years. You can't expect that and expect people to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when the term, you say it all the time, we expect you to be a representative, and so you have to have that constant communication. Otherwise, how do you represent me?
There you go.
Right.
And it saddens me because I've seen and I've witnessed it firsthand. You go to the politicians with issues, and they will tell you, man, don't worry about that. We'll deal with that when it's time to campaign. And I'm talking about, this is year one, you take the issue. Year one. You take the issue to them in year one. And their mindset is already that we'll deal with that in year 4 when we're approaching an election.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I guess it's because a lot of the politicians feel like their job only is most important when it's time to be re-elected, and not the job that they have to do throughout the election period. A lot of, as you said, you go to them and you tell them, okay, well, we have this issue in the community. How can you help us? They put it on the back burner until they realize, okay, well, it's time for the people to put me back in. So let me see how much things I can fit in the short space to make them feel like, yeah, I've been working, I've been doing all of these things. And we need people who get away from that mindset.
You know what I say? I liken it to, I see a lot of the politicians, to me, as people entering pageants rather than politics. So it's almost like their goal is to win the election, for winning the election, as if it was some kind of pageant.
Okay.
So for them, they know what your concern would be now because you brought it to them. So it's like, okay, I'm going to use this to win the pageant. As opposed to, hey, I'm here to serve your needs. And I find that ridiculous. Like, I'm not here for a pageant. I'm here for politics, for service, to help people. So if you tell me in year one what your need is, and I could do it in year one, it's done.
Yeah, that's how I feel about politicians who often say, when you ask them about things that they plan to work on or they can't tell you in detail, but it shouldn't be a secret. We are the people who are trying to put you in office to do things that you said that you want to do, but we don't know what it is that you want to do.
This is it. I came out swinging. From Kuna till now, I came out swinging. This is what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that is, I hear it all the time, and I do believe that it's this old type of politics. It's something from a age that doesn't really apply now, and I'm happy to see that you, as someone who is rather new to this particular environment, to taking things a different route in terms of, hey, if I'm going to these people to say, elect me, these are the things that I intend to do. And it's not about holding it back so nobody teeth it or whatever. As a matter of fact, I always say, well, if I'm not successful at the polls, I should still want these things to happen.
But this is it. And you know, we had an interesting incident. So about 2-3 weeks ago, we started a community beautification program in number 4.
Right.
You know, we started cleaning up in the estate yard and a few other areas. And we put out a list of areas that we intend to beautify.
Right.
And within 2 weeks of putting that out, or within a week and some of putting that out, one of the other candidates went and beautified all the areas that we put out.
Okay.
But for me, I'm looking at it from two perspectives. One, we put forward a vision, right? That these things needed to be done because they hadn't been done in years.
Right.
And to see that, I mean, the resources obviously are there on the other side because we're talking about somebody that has access to government funding. And we are saying that, okay, thanks for using the government to achieving the vision that we had set forth.
It doesn't, in other words, the vision being executed doesn't it doesn't change the fact that you were the catalyst or the visionary.
There you go.
Right.
And the people receiving the service is pleasing to me because that was the whole basis of doing it.
That's the most important part of
Yep.
it.
Exactly.
It just shouldn't have taken you to put it forward for them to realize that these are things that need to be done. If you're there in the community and you represent the community, you should know what the community needs. And you probably
not
do
everybody.
know but they probably do know, but it's the timing that they want to do things.
Sometimes you just need the catalyst, and at the end of the day, what needs to happen just needs to happen, right?
And that's it.
So
that is why I'm the clear choice, you know?
Right. and the thing for me is, I'd like to hear a bit about some of these initiatives. You've spoken a bit about some already in terms of you addressing what you have seen being one of the major issues facing the candidates, which is access to the politician. You've spoken about how you intend to address that. But in terms of some of the other pressing issues within the constituency, what are some of your plans to deal with those?
Well, we have a number of areas, but the one that I want to really push first and really highlight at this point is what I call the highway of opportunities. You know, we've been talking about this highway that will stretch from Bastille all the way down to Capistille, right? Now, I think people hear it and hear a road. But I want us to understand that this is beyond just a road. Because when we look at what is happening, where do we have the most available lands in this country? is at the foot of the mountains, isn't it? In the interior of our land, of our country.
Right.
So imagine building a whole new, and almost a main road, if you want to call it that. A highway is a whole new access road. Imagine building that at the base of the mountains now, because that's where the land is accessible. It opens up opportunities to more lands for homes. It opens up, and these lands are generally virgin lands, so there no construction, there's no design, so you're now creating a whole new map for what our constituency and communities can become. Because think about it. If you go Challengers, Old Road, and I'm using my constituency in the basis, there are areas that if there's a roadblock, you have to wait 1, 2, 3 hours. Let's take even Old Road Bay. Whenever Old Road Bay is destroyed, we have to journey all the way around the country just to come back to Old Road. So you could be in Challengers, right next to Old Road, and you'll have to go all the way around the country to get to Old Road. And we're saying that this now creates a whole new world of opportunities. But not just that. With the virgin lands, there's room for shopping complexes, commercial complexes, gas stations, easy access to farms, easy access to housing and homes. So you create a whole world of opportunities just by the introduction of a highway. So I want us to look at it not just as, oh, we're building a new road and it will ease traffic and all of that. Yes, of course, we welcome that because that's part of the agenda. But beyond the traffic congestion and creating alternate routes, we are saying that we need more lands for people. But what you're going to do, send somebody up in the bush to live?
Right.
Because once you build that highway, you need to light it. Then you already install electricity infrastructure. And then the water infrastructure follows. So right away, the lands now become more accessible. You have electricity close by, water close by, businesses develop. Let's look at Buckley's. The same thing happened when the bypass was built to Buckley's. If you remember what behind where the bypass is now, what it was just generally farms.
Farms, yeah. Sheep.
Pig, sheep, goats. It's a huge development now, a beautiful one at that. Again, because of the introduction of the highway.
Yeah, definitely. When we start talking about development, that type of infrastructure is critical, and roads do function as the main artery from which communities spread.
Right?
Correct. And one of the things that we speak about this on the show a lot, the need to decentralize commercial activity.
Everything don't need to be
everything in Bastille. That is a Bastille. We have outgrown Bastille. It's obvious we've outgrown Bastille, and we need to start decentralizing some of these services, or even providing access outside of the city to some of these services. You don't have to come to town to do everything. You know what I mean? So
and in regards to that, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but in regards to that, there's another plan that we've been developing as well at New Guinea. So at the New Guinea boatyard, there's a plan at play right now to create a commercial pier.
I'll go down there just in a little bit. Look at your boat.
But that's the thing. So there's a commercial pier being developed that now will increase access of the boats to station or the neighboring countries. But that would also dock small cruise ships and cargo vessels.
Okay.
Again, decentralizing commercial activity. Because now all boats and cruise ships don't have to go to the Bastille port.
Right.
They could dock at New Guinea, which opens up again jobs. Because now trucking and logistics, you have to get things to and from these vessels. Yeah. Then if you have cruise ships coming off, you want some type of commercial activity.
Yeah. And a lot of these heritage sites that a lot of the tourists are interested in visiting are right in that area.
Right in that area. Constituency number 4 has the most heritage sites, hands down. You start in the beginning with the Bloody Point, and you end at the foot of Brimstone Hill. Right. And in between, you have Carabel Batik, you have Sir Thomas Warner's tomb, and Sir Thomas Warner's landing site. You have, the whole idea of the hills being, I mean, it's just so rich in the Caribbean drawings. It's so rich in history and heritage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think these are the types of things that we need to really have come into the fore and implemented, and hopefully, there's the political will to achieve some of these things. Because even when you're talking about the New Guinea thing, one of the issues I always have when you go there, sometimes you come in, you got to wait for a customs officer to come, immigration officer to come, because, well, you just can't come off the boat and just run up and down the place. So, but they have to come from wherever they're coming from, sometimes town. Sometimes you're coming in 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, based on how the boats were running or whatever, they have to come. It's just a whole, it's just a whole issue. So those are the types of thoughts I love hearing coming out.
And this is it. So this is something that I presented at my first meeting that we had in Halfway Tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been working diligently since then to push this whole agenda. And I could tell you now it's well underway. This is something that will be happening.
Right.
So back then it was an idea of, okay, I love this idea.
Mm-hmm.
But over the last few weeks, certain things have been secured to ensure that it happens.
Okay. Because a lot of times that's what persons fear as well. Persons fear that, hey, we hear a lot of these good ideas, but for instance, people would ask questions like, how are you planning to pay for that?
Mm-hmm.
Or how are we going to look? Like, what exactly,
who's going to
benefit? Like, so these are the kind of questions that persons have when these ideas are presented. And so that's why I think it's important to really show that, hey, this is something that is achievable. Mm-hmm. It is just not some pipe dream in the sky. And here's the work that has been done to ensure that, hey, when we are successful at the polls, this is the plan that is about to be executed.
And that's the other part too. Like, I always believe in doing what you can do now. If you really want to represent someone, and there are 10 steps to the process to execution, but you can get 3 done.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you going to sit back without starting the 3 that you could do now?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that is exactly what I've done with this process. The 3 steps that we could have achieved outside of office have been achieved,
mm-hmm.
because I want to see this happen. The next 7 steps that require us being in office will have to be achieved after the election.
Right.
But the start, we've already made a start.
Right.
We've already made that stride to say, okay, we're at a place now that we know we can get it done.
So in other words, then it is not your. In other words, this is how I look at it. Your let me not say strategy, but the fact that you have been doing plays into the whole decision-making process for the constituents, in terms of, here, there's a man that he ain't just waiting till he get in to do anything. Like, we see what he has done, we see what he can do, what he's been doing, and so we feel there's a trust that's been developed there, that if he goes in, that this will continue because he's already demonstrated it.
But it comes down to that. You are who you are. You are who you are. And if you know somebody that has already been doing things, they will always do things because that's their natural nature. Let's take, and I've had this conversation so many times. Let's take a candidate like Jeffrey Hanley. Jeffrey Hanley, ever since I've known Jeffrey, has been a man of action. I'm talking about even before I was a teenager, I've known Jeffrey.
Mm.
And he has always been a man of action. Growing up, I've known Jeffrey. He has always been a man of action.
Mm.
Jeffrey has been elected to Parliament, and he's still a man of action. You know why? He is who he is.
That's his nature.
It is his nature.
Okay.
So I'm saying this is how I think we should look at our leaders. What have you been doing before entering politics? Mm-hmm. And you judge them based on that, because guess what? When all the smoke clears and the dust settles, they will go back to who they are.
Mm-hmm. I keep telling people, if you plant a grafted mango, you don't get a grafted mango seed, you don't get grafted.
There you go.
You go back to its nature, You can't escape its nature.
But that is it. That is it. And when we look at our party leader, like, this man just loves people. He cares. Like, you ask anybody that he has attended to, oh, he's an excellent doctor. He's an excellent person. He cares for people. He's so humble. He's so nice. Wonderful experiences. When the smoke clears, he will go back to being who he is. The caring, loving person that he is. But if you elect somebody with different traits, different characteristics that you don't like, when the smoke clears, they'll go back to being who they are.
Well, I mean, I think that is something that the electorate has to take into consideration, and I believe we have begun maturing in a way where these are the things that we begin to look at. I believe that, let me say, I hope that some of the traditional tribalism that exists, has begun to kind of wipe away. I don't know, but it does then force the parties to ensure that the candidates that they bring forward are people, like you said, who are of the people, and the people want to represent them. It puts that pressure on the parties to bring forth people, present people to the people who they want to see there.
And that's the thing. And while I mean, in my song Written Thoughts, I said it. I ain't Superman. I don't have super friends. I'm just trying to save the world with a book and pen. But at this point, I'm now trying to just do my part. So even as a candidate, and number 4 will tell you, I don't have that. Like, I think the traditional PAM persons in the constituency would all openly tell you, like, because they say it openly, like, Samal, we love you bad. Some of them would tell you, like, Samal, I can't support you because of my traditional political affiliation, and I will stick to that. But I could tell you I love you. I could tell you you're the right man for the job. But our historical, development just wouldn't allow me to actually support you, and I won't lie to you. I've had a few of those.
Right.
And I've also had some of them who say, like, forget politics. You are the right man, I'm supporting you.
Right.
But I'm saying that I show up to their events, and when I show up, it's same run out, hug, kiss. Like, that's how we live. I show up in my red, you show up in your yellow, and we live good.
Right.
That's just how we live.
Do you believe, and this is a question that I want to ask you as someone who is fresh into this particular area of politics, running as a candidate, right? Has there been, from your experience or your observation, positive changes within the political culture that you can pinpoint and say, hey, I believe we are moving in the right direction? There might be some things that we still need to evolve to or mature into, but as I've watched politics change over the years, these are some of the positives that I've seen.
Well, I was just articulating one such development, because as I'm saying that it is happening now, they're making it clear this has never happened before. So that is one positive development. And we have a number of situations like that, yes. One of the things I would say, though, is that I find some people are bent on being divisive. And I want to highlight this because it is one of the things that saddened me, and I want us to get away from it. Now, if we look at, like, there are 2 new candidates in number 4 and 1 incumbent who had won last election. And interestingly, for me, the other new candidate was a student of mine. We've been good friends. I mean, when they were away studying and they ran into any problems, they would call me. And I would, tend to whatever situation it is at the time. Even when they finished the final paper. They had certain issues. They called me from Taiwan. I went and I got tokens to all the people that assisted with their paper. Did a whole ceremony to thank everybody who assisted them. And the whole works. I mean, when you look at family relation, their mother calls me her son. Sisters, brother, everybody, the entire family circle, close-knit. And we have had an excellent relationship for maybe near 30 years.
Right.
I mean, even stretches back because his mother and my mother were classmates. So it stretches back, right?
Right.
And then whatever script is presented, there's, a whole negative projection discrediting the fact and the truth that we have always been good.
Mm-hmm.
But then you see where the young minds are being corrupted by persons who have political agendas and presenting them things to say that they know it's just beyond what needs to be said at this point in time.
Do you believe that, and I know the answer to this based on what you're saying, but I want you to articulate it for yourself. Do you believe that there is a way for campaigns to be run where candidates can refrain from successful campaigns can be run, where candidates refrain from unnecessarily smearing the characters of their opponents?
I think we see it at play in the other aspects of the campaign. That is the only part, especially number 4. We've been running a very, very active, but clean campaign, if you want to call it that. Like I could say openly, when Lindsey Grant opened his constituency office, I went over and I had a drink with them. The campaign is clean. But then here comes this divisive part of it introduced into the mix, and vandalizing billboards and
the paint was
like
Ridiculous pain was.
it is ridiculous. And I'm saying that prior to this divisive element being introduced,
there was a relationship there.
everything was going fine. We know we're on separate teams and we campaign as hard as we have to.
But we've seen it in other constituencies. For example, mine, I've yet to see the representative for number 1 for the Labour Party and the PAM Party and the PLP Party go at each other, how I've seen some of these other candidates do it. So I know it's possible.
But let us say this again. And again, there was the Labour Party and the PAM Party. And then here comes the divisive nature in the middle, pulling down Jeffrey's billboards. Remember just a few weeks ago, they wanted to put up their billboards and they pulled down Jeffrey's and threw them down in the drain.
So what you're saying is that there are certain elements within the political class that use that type of campaign because they feel it would give them some edge in the outcome at the end of the
I think there are just some people with bad natures in the politics right now, and you see it.
Okay.
You see it. It's just bad intended people, and you see it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the problem. When your nature is bad and your intention is bad, it comes out. Who you are who you are. And because a lot of it rests on these people in terms of the decisions, that is the decision you see now being extended across the country. In number 1, in number 4. Like, ever since the introduction of this, it has just been negativity. Negativity.
All right. Because, I would love to see a situation where, like you said, people can run on the issues and the track record of the candidates. And I do believe it is unfortunate, the fact that you have candidates who have relationships prior to getting into the politics. And not only that, I think should develop relationships as persons vying for the position of the MP for particular constituencies, because I believe you want to believe that you may have like-minded people who, like I said, families might have been close, these kinds of things, but also may have some merit to some of what they are proposing to do for the constituency, and would have been doing, like yourself, work to ensure that these things come to fruition, even outside of politics. And so these people are resources that you can then tap on when you are successful at the polls. So you don't want to create this animosity, because I'm going to tell you something too. One of the things that for me is most troubling about it is that filters down through the supporters of the thing, and now you have whole communities, sometimes even families
Divided.
at odds, and to me that goes against the entire spirit of what we're trying to achieve just in this whole process of democracy. So I really want to see more, not only politicians like yourself condemn that, but even the electorate condemn that type of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm saying. And for me, someone said this to me just yesterday. There's no positive. The only aspect of the SA is to divide.
Man, spitting bars by.
Listen.
You're a rapper now?
When you want to separate two pieces of board that were once one, what you do?
What do you do,
I can't remember.
And it's sad. And, we laugh at it, but it comes down to what we're speaking on.
Mm-hmm.
We need to find ways to bring our societies up much closer. Our human resource is our greatest resource.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't survive as a small nation having it so viciously divided. We will have different opinions and differing views. That's fine. But when it comes down to bitterness and families argue, think about it. The most arguments within families has come because of one singular agenda in here. Think about it. It happened in number 3, number 8, number 4, number 5.
Yeah, politics is something else. But you've been speaking about how we shouldn't let these elements seep into what you're trying to achieve. And I want to know, how have you been able to deal with these type of nuisances? Because we see, especially on social media, that there are people with certain agendas, and their agendas are just based in trying to make the candidates look bad, or try to have this gotcha moment where they pull up old clips, or they try to put things out there for people to look at you differently. How have you been able to deal with these type of elements?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I think my life has somewhat prepared me for a lot of these things. Like I tell people, I've seen the worst moments in my life already, I've had the worst things said about me. I've been treated in ways that I should not have been treated, even as a young adult. When you look at, my life, I've gone through the worst. And for me, in some of these stages, it was like, how could people even imagine this, right? And when I look at that, I've had to go through that. And it has taught me that even if 1,000 persons have the same opinion, it doesn't make it right. So if you know the truth, then you hold on to what you know. Because I've had to live through that, right? So having lived through that for years, I am not bothered by what people say as much as maybe most people. I hold on to the truth. And I've learned that the truth always comes around and emerges when it is the right time, no matter what is going on. So I see where people, do all sorts of things. But it really doesn't bother me as much because you know what the truth is. I've always been a stand-up person, and my principles have always been my principles. And if you know me 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you know me now. Because I stand up on my principles, whatever they are. And they usually evolve around balance. I always believe, in politics, I still believe, and I said it even here, that you give people a reason to vote for you. Your traditional party politics is one thing, and you have to consider what that means for you. But if I'm coming to you, and I do it in my constituency, if I go to a Labour person and they say, oh, Samal, you're safe, you ain't got to come back here. I'm like, no, I have to. Because I want you to understand what you're voting for. Yes, I know you love Bradshaw. Yes, I know you love Dr. Douglas. Yes, I know you love the party. But I also want you to understand what I bring. And I stop and I talk to all of them. I'm not depending that, oh, they love Bradshaw, so they're going to love me and me. I'm not depending on that. I am saying that I am bringing this to the table. And I want everybody to know what I bring to the table. And that doesn't discredit your love for Bradshaw, or your love for Dr. Douglas, or your love for whoever. But I must introduce what I bring to the table. And I believe that then, and I believe it now. Mm-hmm. It's just who I am.
Yeah. Well, we have just about 17 days left, I think, before the election, voting day. What are your plans leading up to that special day?
Work. And it really is just that. Stay amongst the people, touch base with everybody, and really showcase what a new government will look like. Because there's so much that people have been lacking from our government, and I want to bring that to them. And just being who I am, I want to showcase to them what a new government could look like. And when you look at the party that I'm a part of, the team that we have introduced, I am amazed when I think about the team, and I must be honest with you. Because when you look at our candidate for constituency number 1, let's say, Jeffrey Hanley, no one is as passionate about education in this country as Jeffrey Hanley. No one, hands down. I don't care who you bring, where they're from. Everyone could attest that Jeffrey is the most passionate person about education. And you could see him clearly as a Minister of Education. When you look at the candidate for constituency number 2, again, a strong, powerful woman who has already shown her light in defending persons in court. I mean, a credible, competent lawyer. She has done her thing in the legal area, in the area of law. So again, somebody competent to stand up not only for women's issues, but in defense of anything that we are facing in the country. Somebody who understands the law. When you look at the candidate for number 3, an accomplished entertainer and an accomplished engineer. So as you talk about infrastructure and roads and housing and doing it to a quality standard, you have somebody right in there that is competent and passionate and willing and ready to do it. I mean, when you look at myself, when it comes to entertainment, agriculture, and so many other areas, again, I've been doing it for years to the level where I've been internationally and regionally recognized in a number of these areas. When you look at number 5, a sportsman in Kenny Douglas. Again, passionate sportsman, representing our country at the highest level. So you could easily see Kenny as Minister of Sports. Again, number 6, we already know the capacity of Dr. Denzel Douglas. We've seen it at work. When you look at Leonardo in number 7, a man who stood up and championed issues relating to labor, and one who said, I have the right as a civil servant to support whichever party I want. And he pushed that case all the way through and won. And now, because of that case, any civil servant could stand up and say, look, I support this party or that one. And these are the people that we are putting before you to be elected and saying this will form your next government. And of course, when you look at the leader of our party, Dr. Terrence Joe, we know about his credibility in health. We know about his own demeanor, a caring man, a man that loves people. And we're saying this is your next prime minister. This is your next prime minister. And when you look at the entire slate, I don't think you can, pound for pound, match that slate. I don't think so. I've not seen any slate that can match that pound for pound. And this is why I'm so happy and believe that there's no choice but the St.Kitts-Nevis Labour Party at this point for the next government. And we just want people to see that for themselves and recognize what it is.
Well, I mean, it's obvious to me that you have a high confidence in what your party is able to achieve and will achieve at the polls, and we really looking I know you guys are really looking forward to bringing this particular part of the campaign to an end, and then, of course, going to governance.
Exactly.
And going to governance as we move forward. But I mean, time is fast spent. We have easily easily ate up the time allotted to us today. But just before we go, I want to give you the opportunity to just say any last few words to our listeners and viewers.
Well, I want to say to the listening public, first and foremost, again, that your only choice in this election is the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party. I just presented to you a number of reasons why. But I also want you to take this decision very seriously, because we've seen where our country has really been on a stagnant position for a while. And we need to reintroduce that development. And I think this party is the only party that could offer you a slate that is a clear and clean mandate, as well as a competent team. But beyond the national level, I want to speak to my people in constituency number 4 and say thank you for all your support. Thank you for everything that you do to showcase that you are ready to go out and vote this election. And I want to encourage you to steady journey. We do have 17 more days, and the election is not won until it's won. When the votes are counted at the end of election day and the results are presented, because even at the counting stage, given the vindictiveness of who we are dealing with, it is not done. We have to wait until the victory is presented, and I want us to hold straight until then. I know what your heart desires because you've brought it to me. So this is the question of who they are voting for. This is a question of whether or not we're going to have a fair election and a fair system, and I am praying for that. And I want to say to the country, we need to stand up and ensure that our democracy is protected, because this doesn't just affect today. It affects generations to come. So yes, I want to say thank you to St. Kitts-Nevis for, and encourage everybody to just stand up for what they believe in. Stand up for your democracy. Yes.
All right, man. I appreciate you, and look forward to what is still to come in terms of the campaign and, of course, the election. Good luck to you and your team in terms of the campaign, and I'm sure once the election is finished, we'll have more conversations. But don't feel, when you want to come back again, before election call, you're always welcome here, friend of the show.
Definitely.
All right, man.
All right. Thank you for having me as well to Island Tea. I'm having my tea as I say.
But yeah, man, big up yourself, man. It's always a pleasure, man.
Cheers.
But guys, we're going to have to leave.